Okay, so Linda wanted me to talk briefly about CT and then using it in your training, but also how do I use it in my day-to-day life. So I'm a technology guy here at the Muskogee Public Library in Oklahoma, and we've started up a coding group for youth, and in addition to our coding camp that we have in the summer. So here I put in my nickname is Missouri Gonzales. So people call me Missouri, and at first I was like, I'm not really catching on what's the deal. And they were like, well, Missouri is a show me state, and you're always asking us to show you how something's done. It's never good enough to say, hey, this is done. You always think, well, how is it done? And that's my personality, and that's the way, ever since I've been little, that's my learning style, is that often people think that I'm questioning them and their expertise, and when I'm really just figuring out how I'm doing CT thinking. I'm like, hey, how do we break this into little parts so I have a better understanding? That's why I've always enjoyed math, because again, they want to say, well, it just equals this because, and I'm like, well, how? And so those teachers that took the time to explain that, I did so much better in those classes, and it was great. So yeah, some of my close friends call me Missouri because of the show me state thing, which is like, all right. All right, so I talked about the Hello, they meet twice a month, that we have 90-minute meetups. It's youth driven, so I want get the kids to teach the topics if they can, or if they feel comfortable. We spend about 30 minutes talking about technology, so I call on each member of the group. Sometimes the group will review something. We've had kids bring in technology items like audio mixers that they got for Christmas and talk and share about it, or some kind of Arduino project they're working on, or even a book about technology. So I really like to get them driving our meetups. So that's how I do the youth-driven thing. Then talking about training and introducing CT to the kids. I've done, which I'm sure some of you have heard, the PB&J example, where I tell them explicitly, tell me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it can get pretty ridiculous. And they're like, just put peanut butter on the bread. So I'll just dip my whole hand in the peanut butter jar and put it on the bread. And things like that. And so they're realizing, okay, we've got to be much more explicit with our directions. And then we talk about giving instructions to computers, and they're only going to do what the coders tell the computer. But it's a segue. I like to start off, what we call icebreakers, but I like to start out with some kind of CT activity, breaking a bigger concept down into much smaller pieces. And so again, I'll do something very explicit like that. I also coach soccer, and I've found that I can use things that I do in soccer and translate them to my professional job in instruction, and then vice versa. So for example, the other day I was working with my team, which are also primarily 6th and 7th graders. I would say, hey, we're going to work, we have an hour practice, we're going to work on passing. So I started the practice off similar to that PB&J thing, one of the things I borrowed from work, and that's, hey, I tell the kids, okay, you guys are the coach now, instruct me on how to pass a ball. And so they'll say things like, well, you just kick it over there. So then I'll do something ridiculous like kick it with the back of my heel, or kick it, incorrectly. And they're like, no, you have to kick it this way. And so they want to show me, but I'm like, you have to use your words and show me, coach me through this. And so we'll spend 5 or so minutes doing that. And then we'll get into, once they've got that concept down, then I'll break them up into small groups, and they'll pass back and forth. And then the next couple of minutes, we'll do maybe an obstacle course where they have to dribble through something and pass and hit a target. And then we'll get maybe some competitive exercise where they do a relay race where they have to pass back and forth and beat another team. And then we finish with a game, a full-blown game. So again, in coaching, they're teaching us, break things down into simple parts and build and build and build till you finally get to the point where you're playing a game and they can incorporate whatever skill we were working on. And so I do the same thing in our coding groups. In the summer when we're doing coding, we talk about, the instructions, and we do some activities away from the computer, maybe playing a game or doing some other activity like that. There's one where we blindfold a child and then put some kind of goal in the room and have kids direct the kid where to go. And so things like that. And then we start showing them, okay, whatever coding language we're using, just starting out in small bits to the next week, we're going to finally get to full-blown simple gaming coding. So those are all things that we talk about. So here's some of these. I was excited to use these pictures. These are ones I don't usually get to show the community. These are our coding groups, so it's a very much a social time for them, but it's okay. That's part of what it is. So we do some coding, so they are there. So one of the things that recently I've been showing the coding group are things, again, warm-up drills, what would you call in soccer. So warm-up drills for coding. So I started out with some CT puzzles. So I briefly talked to them about CT, maybe one sentence definition, like, hey, we're gonna do CT, and then we just jump right into the puzzle. And this is what CT is. And so I got to thinking, on social media, I'm always seeing these kinds of puzzles in Facebook. So I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is CT activity. And so I threw this up on the board, and as a group, they always like to work on these as a group. So we just I let them work on it, and then we try to figure it out together. So they try to have a few minutes to figure it out on their own. But as you can see here, you have to figure out, okay, these stars must be worth 6 points each. Then the fans, are such a point total, and so on and so forth. And then the last line is always tricky because they always come out with a different answer, but you can see there's only 3 fan blades on the bottom one instead of 4. And they're always like, no, Mr. G, you got the answer wrong. You're off by 1. And I'm like, well, let's relook at it. And you'll notice also at the bottom, you have to do order of operations as well, which plays an influence. So then we do some rethinking and we spend some time on that. And they really seem to enjoy it. So I never know how this is going to play out, but it's something at least you can try. And again, we have like a 30-minute block. So Facebook is littered with these. You can also do web searches for this as well. Then I moved into doing logic puzzles. I thought, well, let's try this. So logic puzzles, I like this particular one. This is one of the first ones we did. And I like this because this is an actual assignment from a computer science course from the University of Pennsylvania. So I could relate that to them, like, hey, if you go into computer science, these are some of the types of things that they do to kind of train your brain and get you prepped for computational thinking. So on these logic puzzles, basically you get a story, you get some elements here, and then you have a grid here that you can check mark things off. And so this specific one I would just print, and I gave to all the kids, allow them about 10-15 minutes to work on it. And I don't have any rules. If they want to work on it together, that's fine. If they want to work on it by themselves, that's fine. And then usually we come together and solve it together, or have one of the kids explain it, whoever feels confident enough to get up and explain it. That particular one was the University of Pennsylvania. This one is probably the biggest one on the internet, called, and it's free, Puzzle Baron's Logic Puzzles. Again, you can pick the complexity of the puzzle. So this one is one of their super basic puzzles. But you can definitely get much more complex ones if you want to go that route. Now I've started to print these off and put them in or leave them in our makerspace because lots of the kids enjoy doing them. So that was great. But in here again, you see this, if you've not used one of these before or one of these puzzles, this first clue says this person started sometime after the sweeper, and you're trying to figure out the whole story here. And so if Sarissa started after the sweeper, then that clue tells us that she's not the sweeper. So then I can come down here and just put an X in that box. So now I know Sarissa's not the sweeper, but I don't know what other position she's playing. And then again, once I do all these clues, then I might have to go back and just keep working through it until I finally have a grid that looks similar to this, where I have X's, and then that leaves one option left and I'm able to solve the puzzle. So again, something like this has taken our kids about 10-15 minutes to solve. So then this was a pretty great site, and Google was involved with the creation of this site, or supported it. This Computer Science for Fun has again right here, I said, let me on a lark, let's see if there's anything called CT puzzles or computational thinking, and there was. This book is free, it's online, there's the website, and so it has different types of logic type puzzles. And so this is another one that this particular one I just threw up on the board, and we all worked on it as a group. So for example, it says all gems in the game are expensive in-game purchases. All rubies in the games are gems. So we talk about rubies being the subset of gems. But again, I let the kids filter through it. I do as least amount of leading. I pretty much am there just to facilitate and make sure that they understand maybe the mechanics of the puzzle, but I let them work through it. Even if they're wrong, I'm like, okay, so we can just all work together, and then we take a consensus. How many people think this? How many people think that? And then once we get the answer, then I allow for some explanation on my part. But I'm really just letting them work through it all, because I think failure as much as success is helpful to the process. But we work through all this as well. So again, if you're doing training for CT, you could definitely lead with this, and even build it into your title, like CT and gaming, or gaming for CT, or whatever. And then just kick off some of your training with this, and let the group allot some time for them to work through these and realize, hey, and again, I do it because that's my strength. I'm really into gamification learning and gaming. A million tabletop gaming at home. I think we have one that we can play every night and still for a year. But I know here in this group, we've talked about magic tricks and doing things. So whatever you're interested in, whatever your passion, you can figure out, hey, what's the CT component of that? And that's what I would encourage you to use, because that's what you're most comfortable with. So for me, it's gaming, but I am looking at that, looking at the magic one as well, incorporating it. And it's a wow factor. We do a coding camp, and I don't pitch it as a coding camp unless I'm talking to funders. To the kids and youth and everyone else, it's a video game camp. So it sounds much more alluring than, hey, come spend your summer vacation learning coding. It's, hey, come spend your summer vacation playing games and creating your own video game. So CT gaming, we did puzzles. So now I'm also doing introducing gaming. So I bought this game recently called Concept. Some friends and I were playing it, and I, again, thought through the whole game. I was like, this is an amazing CT game. So here's the board. And what you do is you draw a card, you get some kind of a clue, let's say milk, and there's all these symbols on the board. So I place symbols trying to get the rest of the group to guess what word I've drawn. So each symbol represents some kind of an idea or concept. And so for milk, I might put, it's hard to see, but along the right-hand side, there's colors. So I might put my token on white, and edible, and liquid. There's somewhere over here, there's a liquid. So they look at those and they're like, okay, white, liquid, edible, and then and they yell out milk, and they get points for that. So we played this in our last coding group, and again, the kids, you never know how this is going to play out, but they loved it. Again, they're teenagers, preteens and teenagers, and they really wanted to play it the whole time. But again, we cut it off about 30 minutes a lot for that. So we played one round of it, and one round meant everyone got one turn to give clues and concepts. Here's a little bit more closer example from the game Concept. So I'll let you guys figure it out. So again, I know you don't have the instructions that tell you what each symbol means, but you kind of get an idea of what this is. So for example, these are tools. I would guess this means a gear, because each concept can mean multiple things. You're trying to, and then something that cuts in half, and then wood. So again, I can't hear anyone or see the chat, so I don't know if anyone can guess what that is.
The guesses are, let me see if I can pull it up. Scissors, saw, or chainsaw.
Chainsaw is right, yeah, because you have the wood there, right? So the tool and some gears, and you're cutting something in half in wood. I would buy those scissors, though. Those would be great. Then the next one, here's another one. So go for that one. This is probably buildings, and this is probably steel, and this is probably international, I would guess, and then the colors blue, white, and red. So what are the guesses there?
Eiffel Tower.
Yes, it is. Eiffel Tower, you win.
Tower, nice.
And sometimes I'll have, especially during the summer, I have a giant bag. At Walmart, you can get a giant bag of Starburst, and I'll just give kids Starburst as, some kind of a prize, or just to promote participation. So that was great. Yeah. So yeah. This one, this one is pretty difficult, but again, so we have this one, which is occupation. So you can see a construction worker, like a lawyer. And so this one, generally concept means occupation, happy, sad, cognitive, and then you could say medicine, hospital, medical. I probably would have gone a different way with this if I was playing the game.
Psychologist, psychiatrist.
It's close enough. I would give it to you. It was Sigmund Freud. That's why I would go a little bit different like this. I would put like a real person. There's another clue for real person, but yeah, close enough. Anyway, and I won't make you guess this one, but this, you can get pretty complex. They have different clues. They have easy clues, medium clues, and difficult clues. This particular person really went way out there on this clue. And you'll see things like this green token, and that means that's one concept right there. So this is a person, occupation, a male occupation. Then all these secondary clues, again, are not related, or they're related to that, but they're their own separate clue. So this person gave us 4 different clues for the profession, where before we were just playing one main concept. But this one's difficult again. I mean, my hat's off to you if anyone were to guess it. I didn't guess it. And in fact, when I played the teens the other day, I lost. I've never lost this game, and their thinking is amazing. They had, in our game, they had animals, death, red, and liquid, and movie. So animals, death, red, liquid, and movie. And I was like, I had zero clue. And I love movies. And I was like, and then finally, one girl said, oh, I didn't know why I didn't think of this. It's Jumanji. I'm like, where do you get Jumanji? And their thinking was like, well, remember there was water in that movie, and they almost died in the movie, and there were lots of animals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But this one right here, so occupation, male, and then we have a secondary clue, animals. This is on top of. This is brown. This is fast. So animal on top of, brown, fast, occupation, male. Then the next one is male, up, animal. And then this is, I guess, global, international, and then blue, red, star, and white. So
horse jockey or sea biscuit?
Oh, so close. It's cowboy.
Oh, camel jockey.
Okay, no, not that. All right. Yeah, so yeah, but this one's really complex. Probably would have gone in a different direction. But anyway, so yeah, so that's it. That's what I have. That's what we've been doing lately to enjoy and introduce CT thinking to the kids, is to play these games where they're having to break these puzzles or break them down. And so far, they've really enjoyed them. And so I was like, hey, this has been great. So I plan to build some more on this. I know we talked about this. And last year I did things. Oh, you can't probably. Okay, maybe you can see. Let me stop sharing. And stop sharing. Okay. So they make lots of games. This one is a specific coding game for one player, really. I mean, you can group 2 or 3 together, but they're logic puzzles that they have to solve. There's like 50 or so puzzles in this. And so I did this a little bit last summer, and again, the kids enjoyed it. So there are lots of different ways you can go with this. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing lately.